Once again, we seal them with 3 coats of matte spray, let them dry, then haze them with mold release. Next, we Vaseline the board, but only around the edges of the ears. Then we cut some strips of foam core for our walls and use them as a straight edge to mark the outline of our mold box. Now we can Vaseline the rest of the board right up to those lines. But make sure you don't go out of the lines or your glue won't stick in those spots. Now we add 2 little squares of clay that will be pry keys for opening the mold. Next, we run a bead of hot glue and stick on the first wall. You can use another wall to square it up while it dries. Then, we glue on the rest of the walls. And here is our finished mold box with our pry keys and the board coated in Vaseline. And then we do the same thing for the foot sculptures. Again, before we get into these molds, please watch our previous videos for a more thorough description of some of these steps. Alright, here we go. We mix up our splash coat of hydrocal and start drizzling it onto the sculptures. Then we use a brush to get it into all the details and work out the air bubbles. Next, we do the same to the foot sculptures, working really fast and getting everything covered. And once we have the hydrocal brushed over the entire sculptures, we can then just fill up the mold box. We do the same for the feet, and I bang on the table with my fist to burp out any air bubbles. Once it's had time to cure, we then pull off the foam core walls. Next, using a screwdriver, we find our pry keys and pry up the mold from the board. Then we grab our Surform and knock off all the sharp corners of the mold. We dust it off with a brush, and now you can see the edges are nice and soft. And now we can remove the clay. We pop out the pry keys first, and then using a soft wooden tool, we very carefully dig out the ear sculptures. And it pops out nice and clean since we used a mold release. Next, I use an X-Acto knife to shave away the sharp rough edge a bit around the opening of the mold. Alright, it's looking pretty good. Just a little bit of cleanup and it'll be good to go. So now we open the foot mold. Then we carefully clean out all of the clay. Then we knock down and soften all of the corners, and then shave down that sharp inner edge just a bit. Just a little final cleanup, and here's our finished box mold. It turned out really nice, and it sits flat and level for casting latex. And this simple box shape is really easy to handle. And here's the finished ear mold. It turned out really clean too. Again, make sure you watch our plaster mold tutorial for some great tips on final cleanup and patching air bubbles. Well, now that all the molds are done for the collector, we can start casting the latex. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you soon.